Hello everyone. So today we will continue from our last lecture. So in the last lecture we were discussing about segmentation, how do you segment the market, why segmentation is important and all those things. Then we next move to the different kinds of targeting methods, like how do you target the markets. For example, you could go for a differentiated marketing strategy, you could go for a undifferentiated marketing strategy, or you can go for a concentrated approach, right. So all these different situations will depend on what kind of a company you are talking about or you are thinking, what is the size of the company, what is the product of the company, what kind of customers do they cater to. So all this would help even the objective of the company, what is its vision and mission, long term objectives and goals. So all these are very important from a perspective of the company, and as students of management or managers in the working in the field, one has to be utterly careful in deciding and creating a good segmentation and targeting strategy, right. Today we will be talking about the third part, which is the positioning, right. So let us look. So we have covered segmentation. So where we said that the segment should be measurable, relevant, accessible, differentiable. So all these points were very important, and we then discussed it should be creating macro profiles of the segments and the micro profiles on basis of which you will create those segments. After that, we looked at the profitability and competitive analysis, the whether the market potential is there or not, and how many competitors are there, and what kind of how deeply the competitors are entrenched into the market, they are penetrated into the market. So looking into all these things, we finally selected the target segment. But all this is not over, things are not over here. So the last part of the strategy or the system is how do you position your product. Now why I am talking about positioning, or we need to know about positioning, although positioning is such a word which is largely used and understood from more like in the consumer goods category. But today we are talking about from a different perspective. It is not that positioning is not required for B2B products. B2B products also require positioning and branding altogether. Yeah, that is always a debate whether branding is essential in B2B or not, because it is a rational market. But however you may say, brands and positioning are two important concepts which will be connected to any kind of product that you can think of. So now when we talk about positioning, we will be talking about two important elements, like developing the product or the market position, right, for each target market selected. So what is the target market a company has selected? For example, it could have a target market which is only for a medium mid-sized companies, or it is a the target market is only for automotive companies, let us say, from a product point of view. So what kind of target market are you talking about? And once that is the first thing, accordingly you will position your product. Second part is developing the right marketing mix. So helps also in the positioning of the product. Now before understanding these concepts, we have to also understand what exactly positioning means. Okay. Now before we get into the definition of positioning, let me these are some few companies logo, and there are few products, right. So just look at them and try to answer answer the question that is mentioned out here. What comes to your mind when you see these companies and products? Companies here in the sense I mean the logo, right. So this is Tata's, right, this is Larsen and Toubro, L&T, Infosys. So what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you see the logo of Tata, right, or you hear the word Tata? Does it bring something into your mind? What happens when you hear the word Infosys? For example, if somebody asks me, I would say when I hear the word Tatas, it gives me the first thing, the first word that comes to my mind is trust, leadership, trust. Okay. When somebody talks about Infosys, the image of Narayan Murthy comes into my mind, and I feel a very sound, safe company, a large software manufacturer, and a very ethically strong company, right. what happens when you talk about L&T? The first thing that comes to my mind is, one of the largest engineering companies in the country, around the globe, and has a very strong presence, and maybe I can easily say unbeatable in the Indian market, at least when you talk about engineering division. Similarly, when you look at a, let us say this is a pump, right. Now, when you see a pump, which is the first thing that comes to your mind? Which company's name comes to your mind? For me, if somebody would ask me, I would say, first company that comes to my mind is, let us say, Kirloskar pumps. Okay. Now, this is a heavy machinery. Now, which company, what is, when you look at this product, what is the, without naming, without looking at the products, the name of the company, the first thing that comes to my mind is a Caterpillar, or some kind of machinery. When I see a lubrication, for example, a lubricating oil and all, so the first thing again comes to my mind, undoubtedly, at least in the Indian market, for me is Castrol, right. These are my personal things that comes to my mind. So, Castrol, when I say lubrication or oil, I see lubricants, the first thing is oil, Castrol. Now, the question is, are these the only products in this sector, only companies who make pumps? Are these the only ones who make lubricant oils? Are these the only ones who make heavy machinery? No, it is not. Then why did the first name that occurred to my mind, or many of you might have thought like me, was like Castrol or a Kirloskar or a Caterpillar or anything? So, when we talk about similarly tractors, the first thing that comes to our mind may be a Mahindra tractor, or something like that. So, why does it happen? What is it? Is it just like that without any reason, or it is well is a preparation that has been conducted, a well done exercise conducted by the companies? So, this is what we will be talking about. You see, in this world there are millions and millions of products, at least every day, for example, or many products are coming into getting life, right. And annually, if I am not wrong, there are thousands and thousands of products which come to the world, right. And most of them do not succeed, some of them become successful, right. Similarly, there are many kinds of companies who are very popular at one point of time and then they get extinct. So, why it is so happening? How do companies manage? For example, why Tatas are there for almost 100 years? So, how do these companies live so long, right? Similarly, how do these product manufacturers create an image in the mind of the consumer? So, this creation of image, so in the mind of the consumer, is something very important, because it keeps you, it makes you separate from the crowd. Okay. So, you look very different from the crowd and people can easily remember them. So, positioning can be defined as the distinct place a product occupies in the mind of the target customer. So, we know the target customer, and in the mind of the target customer, how do you fare? How does the target customer think about you, right? So, when I talk about, let us say, lubricants, the first name I suggested was Castrol, right. So, is it to most of the people Castrol is the first name that comes, or something else comes to their mind? So, if most of the people say it is Castrol, then no doubt Castrol has made a very good positioning in the minds of the consumer. It is how the company wants the customers to perceive it. Sometimes, a company perceives, for example, the brand, although it is from the FMCG sector, brand Johnson and Johnson has an image which is very delicate and softer, right. Similarly, if you every product, for example, if you look at a Ashok Leyland truck, it gives you that robustness, ruggedness feeling, right. MRF tires, a sense of manliness, masculinity, it gives you a feeling. So, why do we think like that? The company wants us to think like that. So, they have positioned themselves, they have made prepared us to think in a way that they want us to perceive, right. So, the point is, in this world today, as you can see, information and media explosion is a very rampant thing, right. For example, all of us today are bombarded with information and lots of different mechanisms of reaching out to the audience is possible. So, media explosion is there, there are lots of channels, lots of agencies through which you can reach the audience, lots of information, you know huge amounts of information are floating around us. So, through you are reading newspapers, magazines, the internet, on TV and everything, right. So, in this case, why I am saying there is an information and media explosion, because so obviously it becomes more and more difficult for somebody to retain, to remember a product or a company or a service in this huge explosion, right. Lots of products, clutter of products and services. So, huge number of products every day, as I said, or annually, millions of products are coming, globally to the market, and many of them phase out because of poor quality or something, but a large portion also of the products fail because they are unable to position them correctly. The product might be okay, but the people do not find any uniqueness, they do not see anything, there is nothing new for them. So, they feel okay, it is okay to forget this product, right. So, that is also a serious problem. For example, I was reading that in a year, about 50,000, million of books are being written, right. Now, why do we still remember only a few books, right? Why do not we remember all of them, right? It is not possible. The human mind has a limitation in memory, in storage capacity. So, obviously, you have to just be different to find a space or the place in the mind of the human, in the human mind, right. Interestingly, human minds only will remember what they know, right. Now, this is something called selective retention of the human mind. So, the human mind will remember something what it has, what it knows, or what it has an idea about. Now, for example, if I write two companies, right, let us say making computers, for example, let us say right, versus IBM, and in a split of a second I will ask you which one do you remember now out of these two, or which one do you connect, and after maybe a day if I ask you which one did I write here, you will only, and maybe you will only remember this, right. You might not even remember what was the 3 alphabets that I had written. So, selective retention is something, although IBM today is not in the manufacturing business of computers, right, but it is still into consulting and all. But companies like Lenovo, for example, Lenovo or a let us say HCL, anything, there can be, they are all into computer business. Similarly, the limitations of the human mind has some limitations. For example, you see, you must have seen that most of the telephone numbers, they come in 7 digits. Now, why 7 digits? Because earlier days scientists thought that the maximum that a person can memorize is 7 numbers, right, 7 numbers. So, most of the telephones were numbers were in 7 digits, right. And if you even look at some interesting cases like the 7 wonders of the world, 7 days in a week, right. So, 7 is an alphabet which is generally understood by the scientists, that human beings can retain in their memory up to 7 numbers, right. But now even that is being proved wrong, and now some scientists are claiming that it is not 7 but 4. Why? Because it can be 7 only if you allow for repetition of the letters. If you do not allow for repetitions and you do not have any scientific way of memorizing, then a person can maybe remember 4 numbers at one go, right. So, anyway, the question here is, the human mind has some limitations, that means, right, and in these limited space you have to find a place in the mind of this consumer and the human beings, right. And one more interesting thing that affects the positioning is the effect of being first, biggest or largest. Now, for example, this is generally asked, which is the who was the first man to land on the moon, right, which is the most powerful country in the world, which is the biggest animal in the world, or which is the smallest organism in the world, which is the largest mountain in the world. Now, you see, not always first, although books write it always as the first, but first in the sense it could be the biggest, the smallest, the largest, the tiniest. People tend to remember things only when they are at their extremes, right. So, otherwise the if somebody asks you who was the second man to walk on the moon, what is the second largest animal in the world, which is the second, then you start getting puzzled and you may not even know, and I also do not know, right. So, the question here is, how do you position in spite of these complexities, and there can be many more complexities, right. How do you position yourself in the mind of the consumer? So, that is a big challenge, and that is important because we have understood, like segmentation, which where you said that you cannot cater to the whole world or the whole universe. Similarly, how do I position in myself in the mind of the consumer, where when everywhere there are lots and lots of protection services which are similar to mine, right. Classic positioning statements. I have brought 2-3 statements. Now, this is considered to be one of the history's best positioning statement made by Avis. Avis is a company which was into car rent and all. So, what Avis had said was, its positioning statement was that Avis is only number 2 in rent a cars, and who was the number 1? Hertz. Hertz was the company which was number 1, Hertz, right. So, they said Avis is only number 2 in rent a cars, so why go with us? And then they answered, we try harder, because we are second, we want to come first, so we try harder. Now, this statement, this positioning statement created history, actually made wonders, and the company which was making losses for 13 years consecutively started making small profits initially, and then the profit margins grew up tremendously with time, right. So, another example is think different. Now, this is obviously you all must have got it, it is Apple, right, think different. So, when Apple says think different, actually this terminology they have taken from IBM, or I am not saying they have taken, but earlier IBM used to say just think, right, think, that was only the kind of word they used as a positioning statement. But Apple came up with something different and they said think different, right. So, now this has become a very popular statement, and people understand and connect it with Apple, right. The third is one which I liked and I brought here is where dreams come true. Now, when you see this, obviously this is the Walt Disney world, and so this is a Disney world and all, and you can remember, if I say Disney, the Mickey Mouse and all these Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse and all these characters. So, the most popular obviously the Mickey. So, where dreams come true. Now, how is that you remember Walt Disney, but if I say tell me another company which is into such kind of entertainment business, maybe you will not record anything in your mind, nothing will come to your mind, even it does not come to my mind also, right. So, the point here is, what I am trying to make is, these positioning statements aided with a good product or service. See, only a statement will not work, right. A good product or service along with a good positioning statement can make you can give you a very good recall factor, right. That means it makes very simple for consumers to remember you, right. And as we said, if people remember you, then they will try to test the product, okay, time and again, and they slowly that goes into a loyalty mode, right. So, they become more and more loyal to that product or the company or that manufacturer, whoever it is, right. Now, how to make a positioning statement, right? First of all, there are 5 things that you need to understand. So, suppose today you want to make a positioning statement for some company or for your university or something. Can your university or have a positioning statement of its own? Why not? You can, but given the condition is that making a statement is only not enough. You have to live with it. That means your kind of service, your kind of personality that you develop for the organization, that also has to reflect, right. So, the question here is like, who are you going to serve? Who is your target customer, right? What is the value you are offering? So, value here we say what kind of services, what kind of products are the customers going to benefit out of my products or services, okay, fine. Now the question, how you want to position? how you want to position. Now, suppose for example, I want to position myself, for example, there is a very classic again example that comes to my mind. Most of the cigarette manufacturing companies globally in the initial days or the earlier days, they used to have women in their ad, right, and this was followed by almost all companies. But one company differed. Now, what they did was they positioned themselves as a strong man, a rugged man, right, and they used that cowboy, who is generally shown on a horseback and a very rugged, strong masculine character. They used that as a logo, right, as a part of their advertisement, and the rest was history. So, the company I am talking about is Philip Morris and the brand that I am talking about is Marlboro, right. So, by using this kind of positioning statements, these companies made some wonders, right. Why you are in business, what is your mission, what is your business objective, right, and how are you different from the competition. These 5 questions if you answer, then it helps you to create a good positioning statement, and if you can't answer any of these, then maybe you have to take time in understanding it, right. So, for procedure for developing a positioning strategy, generally as that was one way of looking. So, there are 3 important things that you have to do one by one. So, first is it says identify the major attributes for differentiation. So, what are the major attributes you are talking about? Second is select the differentiating attributes, right. Selecting the differentiating, I first identify and then select, right, and then communicate. Identify, so this is the keyword here, then select is the keyword and then communicate. So, by doing these 3 you can position your product. So, when you are talking about identifying major attributes for differentiation, so the business firm should understand the customer's perceptions regarding the various competing products with respect to the major attributes. Now, for example, when you are talking about positioning your product, so what attributes your company holds, what are the major attributes? Now, the attributes can be in terms of your product, could be in terms of your service, could be in terms of your human resource, your personal or the image that you are holding. Okay. Now, for example, let us go one by one. Now, product as a let us say variable. So, when you talk about industrial or B2B products, right, the variation in product features may be slightly there because most of the products look alike. In fact, in any category you see the products will be more or less similar in nature, right, in one product category, but still you can differentiate them. But the product quality or performance can be used for differentiation, right. Now, I have brought an example here, one of the companies which is a India's one of the what, it is a leading auto component manufacturers. Now, Motherson Sumi Systems Limited is a company which makes various products like wiring harness, mirrors, injection molded products, door trims, etc., etc. Now, this company has become one of the largest manufacturers and suppliers of auto components, and almost all global players, leaders are their customers. Now, how it has created that product variability, right, how it has created a performance based differentiation and quality based differentiation is something that has made it special, right. So, you can always position your product when you have your position your brand or product when you can create a differentiation in terms of your quality and performance. Now, coming to in terms of service, can we do a differentiation in terms of service? Yeah, we can. For example, you look at some business firms offer superior pre-sale services. Example, giving required information during sales services, on time delivery services, after sales services, repair and all these things, right. So, for example, here Amazon is one which we are talking about. Now, Amazon is giving you information and good services. Another company that comes to my mind when I talk about service or logistics and all, FedEx, right, the first name that comes to my mind. So, how these companies, in spite of so many companies being around there, how they have created this differentiation, how are they differentiating themselves from others is a challenge. Now, in terms of personal, Now, these are two firms which I have brought example, one is Amazon again and the other is Cisco, two best companies to work with, right. So, business firms differentiate from their competitors by recruiting better people and arranging training programs at all levels. So, Amazon as the best among the mega companies and Cisco best among the largest companies, large companies. Okay. So, two companies I have brought in the list from the list that was from the 2022 list, the companies to best to work with, right. So, this way also you can create a differentiation. And finally, when it comes to image, what is the image that you are holding? Now, image is something that is built across a long period of time. When competing offers from various suppliers are more or less similar, the buying firm responds favorably to the supplier firm which has a good image. Now, just imagine Tata, for example, Tata Steel. Now, Tata Steel is a manufacturer of steel. Now just imagine what differentiation are you going to do in steel? Steel is more like a commodity. But when it comes to the image of the firm, right, Tata, if anybody is an Indian, he would understand the meaning, the word it the kind of image it has created, leadership with trust. So, the trust word is always associated with Tatas. So, this kind of a image also creates a differentiation and helps in the positioning. Now, selecting the differentiating attributes. Now, if you look at it, now you have identified the attributes, now you have to select as we said. Now, you can look at maybe from the benefit kind of positioning, right. So, the business marketer has to decide how many and which attributes should be selected in order to differentiate the company or the product, right, from its competitors. Now, it could be a one simple positioning, one single benefit positioning, or could be double benefit positioning or multiple, more than two also, right. Now, let us see this example. Now, a company like Oracle says we offer better solutions. So, better solutions is where they want to position one benefit positioning. One benefit is better solutions. On the other hand, a company like Volvo, which is a manufacturer of automobiles, now it says the safest and the most durable. So, two kinds of positioning, two positioning statements, right. So, safest and most durable. Sometimes companies can go for even more than two also. So, these are the kinds of positioning that a company does on basis of the benefits that it can accrue or people can get, right. Now, the third part is the communicating the company's positioning. So, in consumer markets, the positioning strategy is mainly communicated through advertising, right. But here we know that in the B2B market, advertisement is not taken as the most vital form of communication or the most important form of communication. In business markets, the communication of positioning is done through personal selling at a by the sales force, sales promotion at let us say through the trade shows, exhibitions and all. And advertisement comes in only in technical or trade journals, right, which is people who are genuinely interested. See, there is no point in in the FMCG what happens, you give advertisement in a TV for example, and maybe 1 crore people are watching, out of which only 10% are the potential buyers. So, the rest 90% it is of no use, only there is a possibility that tomorrow they might become potential. But here in B2B market we do not do that, right. What we do is we focus on only and only the customers who are our potential or who are the customers to us, who otherwise the same ad targeting to somebody who is not even concerned about my product, it is a waste of my money, right. So, how do you communicate the company's message to the customer, right, is something also equally important, and that is what we do through the sales force, through a personal selling, creating a personal relationship, through a promotion, or exhibiting your products in the trade shows, or even advertising through the trade journals. So, these are some key things that are very important while positioning our product. Okay. So, now what we will do is we will stop here today, we will wind up the lecture here, and from in the next lecture we will continue from here only, and about the different kinds of positioning strategies on terms of what other parameters or attributes positioning is done, we will discuss about it. So, till then take care and thank you very much.